Deadbeat dad abandoned us 15 years ago. Now he's terminally ill and wants to move in, claiming he's changed. My wife says we should let him. I never thought I'd be writing this post. Hell, I never thought I'd be in this situation. But here I am, staring at my phone, my wife's words echoing in my ears, we should let him stay with us. Let me back up a bit. I'm Jack, 35, married to Sarah for 10 years now. We have 2 beautiful kids, Emma, 8, and Liam, 6. Life's been good to us. We've got a nice house in the suburbs, steady jobs, and a golden retriever named Max. Pretty much the American dream, right? But there's always been this hole. This nagging absence that I've tried to fill with work, with family, with anything I could. Because 15 years ago, my dad walked out on us. I was 20, just starting college. My little sister, Megan, was only 12. Mom was battling breast cancer. And Dad? Dad decided it was all too much. One day, he just left. No note, no goodbye, nothing. Just an empty closet and a half-eaten breakfast on the kitchen table. The years that followed were hell. Mom's cancer got worse. I dropped out of college to take care of her and Megan. We scraped by on Mom's disability checks and whatever odd jobs I could pick up. Megan had to grow up way too fast, becoming Mom's primary caregiver while I worked whatever hours I could to keep food on the table. Dad? Not a word. No child support, no calls, no birthday cards. Nothing. It was like he'd never existed. Mom passed away when I was 23. Megan was 15. We buried her on a cold, rainy day in October. I remember standing there, holding Megan as she sobbed, thinking, where the fuck are you, Dad? But life went on. It had to. I got my GED, then went to night school while working full-time. Met Sarah at the diner where I waited tables. She was this bright-eyed college student who'd come in for late-night study sessions, and somehow, she saw something in the exhausted waiter who always made sure her coffee was full. We got married when I was 25. Sarah helped me put Megan through college. We built a life together, had our kids. And slowly, the hole Dad left. It didn't exactly fill, but it scabbed over. I learned to live with it. Until last week. It was a Tuesday evening. I was helping Emma with her math homework while Sarah was giving Liam a bath. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer it. Hello? Jack? Is that you, son? I knew that voice. 15 years older, raspy now, but I knew it. My hands started shaking. Dad? There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. Yeah, it's me. I know I have no right to call you. But I need to talk to you. Can we meet? I wanted to scream at him. To tell him to go to hell. To hang up and block the number. But something in his voice stopped me. He sounded broken. Why now? I managed to choke out. Another long pause. I'm sick, Jack. Really sick. Pancreatic cancer. The doctors. They're saying I've got maybe 6 months left. The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the kitchen counter to steady myself. I understand if you don't want to see me, he continued. God knows I deserve it. But I needed you to know. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I don't remember much of the rest of that conversation. I think I agreed to meet him. The next few days were a blur. I told Sarah, who held me as I alternated between rage and grief. I called Megan, who flat out refused to have anything to do with him. And then, yesterday, I met my father for the first time in 15 years. He was at a small cafe near the hospital. I almost didn't recognize him. The strong, tall man of my childhood memories was gone, replaced by a frail, gaunt figure hunched over a coffee cup. His hair was gray now, his face lined and sunken. But his eyes. They were the same. The same deep brown I see every day in the mirror. Jack, he said, standing up slowly. Thank you for coming. I didn't hug him. Couldn't bring myself to. We sat down, an ocean of unspoken words between us. You look good, he said softly. You've done well for yourself. I nodded stiffly. No, thanks to you. He flinched but nodded. I deserve that. I deserve a lot worse. Why? The question burst out of me. Why did you leave? Do you have any idea what we went through? What Mom went through? He closed his eyes, pain etched on his face. I was a coward, Jack. Plain and simple. Your mom got sick, and I couldn't handle it. The thought of losing her, of being left alone with 2 kids. I panicked. I ran. It's no excuse, I know that. But that's what happened. And after? I demanded. 15 years, Dad. 15 fucking years without a word. He nodded, eyes downcast. At first, I told myself I'd go back. That I just needed some time too. I don't know, find myself or some bullshit like that. But as time passed, the shame got worse. The longer I stayed away, the harder it became to face what I'd done. So I just kept running. I wanted to hit him. To scream at him. To make him feel a fraction of the pain we'd felt. But looking at him now, seeing the shell of the man he'd once been, I realized. He'd been punishing himself far more effectively than I ever could. I'm dying, Jack, he said quietly. I don't say that to gain sympathy. I don't deserve any. But facing death. It's made me realize how badly I've fucked up. The things I've thrown away. I can't undo what I've done. But I needed, to see you. To tell you how sorry I am. For everything. I sat there, emotions warring inside me. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to have some kind of Hollywood reconciliation. Another part wanted to walk out and never look back. Instead, I found myself asking, "What do you want from me, Dad?" He looked up, surprise in his eyes. I don't know. I guess I just wanted a chance to apologize. To see the man you've become. I nodded slowly. Okay. Well, you've done that. Is that all? He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is the address of the place I'm staying. It's a small apartment near the hospital. I know I have no right to ask this, but if you wanted to talk again, or if Megan ever changes her mind. I took the paper automatically, not really sure why. We talked for a little while longer. He asked about my life, about Sarah and the kids. I found myself telling him more than I'd planned to. About my job as an accountant. About Emma's love for soccer and Liam's obsession with dinosaurs. About Sarah's work as a high school English teacher. As I was getting ready to leave, he said, "Jack, I know this is asking too much, but the treatments are rough. The doctors say I should have someone with me, but I don't. I don't have anyone. I was wondering if you'd consider." I froze. "You want to move in with us?" He backpedaled quickly. No, I wouldn't presume. I just thought maybe you could check in on me sometimes? Or if you know of any care facilities." I left without giving him an answer. Drove home in a daze. And when I told Sarah about the conversation, about his implied request, she surprised the hell out of me. "Maybe we should let him stay with us," she said quietly. I stared at her, sure I'd heard wrong. "What?" She took my hand. "Jack, I know how much he hurt you. And I'm not saying you have to forgive him. But he's dying. He's alone. And despite everything, he's still your father. He gave up the right to that title a long time ago," I said bitterly. Sarah nodded. "I know. But think about it this way, this might be your last chance to get answers. To really talk to him. And it might be good for Emma and Liam to meet their grandfather." I pulled away. "You want to let that man near our children?" "He's dying, Jack," Sarah said gently. "He's not a threat to them. And maybe seeing the family he missed out on will drive home what he lost." I've been turning it over in my mind ever since. Part of me thinks Sarah's crazy. That letting him into our lives would be opening ourselves up to more pain. That he doesn't deserve our help or compassion. But another part wonders if she's right. If this is a chance for closure, for answers. A chance to show him the life he could have had, the grandfather he could have been. I don't know what to do. The thought of him in our house, interacting with my kids, it makes my stomach churn. But the thought of him dying alone in some sterile hospital room. That doesn't sit right either. So here I am, Reddit. Pouring my heart out to a bunch of strangers because I don't know who else to turn to. Am I crazy for even considering this? Am I a bad son for hesitating? A bad father for thinking about exposing my kids to him? What would you do in my shoes? Edit 1. Holy crap, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for the responses and awards. I'm trying to read through everything and will respond to some comments soon. Just to clarify a few things that keep coming up. 1. Yes, I've talked to my sister Megan about this. She wants nothing to do with Dad and thinks I'm insane for even considering it. Can't say I blame her. 2. My kids don't know about their grandfather. We've always just said he passed away before they were born. Opening that can of worms is one of my biggest concerns. 3. To those asking about his financial situation, I honestly don't know. He didn't mention needing financial help, Just someone to check in on him during treatments. But you're right, that's definitely something I need to clarify before making any decisions. 4. Several people have mentioned hospice care. That's something I hadn't considered and will definitely look into. Thank you for the suggestion. 5. To the person who asked, yes, we've confirmed the cancer diagnosis. It wasn't just taking his word for it. I'm still processing all of this. Sarah and I talked more last night, and we're considering a sort of trial period, maybe having him over for dinner once a week to see how it goes. But I'm still not sure. Your comments have given me a lot to think about. I'll update when I've made a decision. Thanks again, everyone. Edit 2. Okay, wow. I never expected this post to get so much attention. Thank you all for your advice, stories, and support. It's been overwhelming, but also incredibly helpful. I wanted to give you all an update on what's happened since my last edit. After a lot of discussion with Sarah, and taking into account many of your suggestions, we decided to take things slow. We invited Dad over for dinner last weekend. To say it was awkward would be an understatement. We told the kids that he was an old family friend who was in town and not feeling well. Emma, being Emma, immediately appointed herself his caretaker and spent most of the evening showing him her rock collection and soccer trophies. Liam was more reserved, but he did proudly demonstrate his dinosaur roar. Dad. He was different than at the cafe. Seeing him interact with the kids, there was a softness to him I'd never seen before. He listened to Emma's stories with genuine interest, asked Liam questions about his favorite dinosaurs. At one point, I caught him wiping his eyes when he thought no one was looking. After the kids went to bed, we talked. Really talked. He told me more about the years he was gone, about his struggles with depression and alcoholism, about the series of dead-end jobs and failed relationships. He didn't offer these as excuses, just as explanations. I know I can never make up for what I did, he said. But I want you to know that not a day went by that I didn't think about you and Megan. The shame. It ate me alive. But I was too much of a coward to face it. We talked about Mom, about her final days. He broke down when I told him about her asking for him near the end. I won't lie, part of me felt a grim satisfaction at seeing his pain. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad for all the years we'd lost, sad for the relationship we could have had. At the end of the night, we came to a decision. We're not moving him in, at least not yet. But we've agreed to have him over for dinner twice a week. Sarah's looking into home health care options for the days he has treatment. And I've agreed to take him to his next doctor's appointment. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it's something. A chance, maybe. For what, I'm not sure. Megan's still adamant about not seeing him, and I respect that. I've promised to keep her updated, but I won't push her to reconnect if she doesn't want to. I know some of you will think I'm being too soft, that he doesn't deserve this chance. And maybe you're right. But someone in the comments said something that stuck with me. Forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of anger. I'm not there yet. The anger, the hurt, they're still very much present. But for the first time in 15 years, I feel like maybe, just maybe, I can start to let go of some of it. Thank you all again for your advice and support. It's meant more than you know. I'll update again if anything significant changes. Edit 3. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. I feel like I owe you all another update, given how supportive everyone has been. First, the medical stuff. Dad's latest scans weren't good. The cancer's spreading faster than the doctors initially thought. They're talking about maybe 3 months now, instead of 6. He's started a more aggressive chemo regimen, which has been really tough on him. After a lot of discussion, and, I'll admit, some arguing, Sarah and I decided to move Dad into our guest room. It just became clear that he couldn't manage on his own anymore, and shuffling him between our place and his apartment was getting complicated. It hasn't been easy. There have been days where I've questioned every life decision that led me to this point. Dad's chemo makes him violently ill sometimes. He's weak, needs help with basic tasks. It's been a strain on all of us. But there have also been moments that I never expected. Moments that have made me glad we made this choice. Like last week, when I came home from work to find Dad sitting on the couch, Emma curled up next to him, both of them completely engrossed in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Apparently, Emma had declared that since Grandpa, yeah, that's a thing now, hadn't read the books, she had to read them to him. Or the time Liam had a nightmare and, in his half-asleep state, toddled into Dad's room instead of ours. I found them in the morning, Liam snuggled up against Dad's side, both of them fast asleep. There was also a day when I came home early and overheard Dad talking to Sarah in the kitchen. He was thanking her, not just for taking care of him, but for being there for me and Megan when he wasn't. For helping raise us into the people we are today. I've never heard him so humble. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are still moments of tension, of old resentments bubbling up. We've had a few heated arguments, usually when I'm stressed and tired. But we're learning to navigate it. Sarah's been my rock through all of this, always there to listen or to take over when I need a break. The biggest development, though, came last week. Megan called. She'd been following my updates, and she wants to see Dad. She's flying in next weekend. I'm a mix of emotions about this. Happy that Megan's willing to give Dad a chance, nervous about how it will go, worried about the toll it might take on both of them. Dad cried when I told him. Actually cried. I've never seen him like that before. As for me, I'm surprised by how I feel. Don't get me wrong, there are still days when the anger comes rushing back. Days when I look at him and all I can see is the man who abandoned us. But more and more, I'm starting to see him as human. Flawed, deeply flawed, but human. We've had some long talks late at night, when the pain keeps him up. He's told me about his own father, about the cycle of abandonment he swore he'd break but ended up repeating. About the demons he's fought all his life. It doesn't excuse what he did, but it helps me understand. I've told him about the years after he left. About dropping out of college, about the nights I went to bed hungry so Megan could eat. About watching Mom fade away, hoping until the very end that he'd show up. It wasn't easy to talk about, but it felt cathartic, I guess. Like lancing a wound that had been festering for years. The kids have been amazing through all of this. They've accepted Grandpa with the easy resilience of childhood. Emma's appointed herself his personal nurse, always making sure he's comfortable and entertained. Liam's a bit more reserved, but he's started sharing his precious dinosaur toys with Dad, which is a big deal for him. Sarah. I don't know how I got so lucky with her. She's been the glue holding everything together. She's rearranged her schedule at work to be home more, she's researched palliative care options, she's even started learning to cook Dad's favorite meals from when he was a kid. I fall in love with her more every day. There have been some tough moments with the kids, though. Emma asked why Grandpa wasn't in any of our old photos. Liam wanted to know why he'd never met Grandpa before. We decided to be honest with them, in an age-appropriate way. We explained that Grandpa had made some big mistakes and hadn't been part of our lives for a long time, but that he was trying to make things right now. It led to some interesting conversations about forgiveness and second chances. Emma, in her 8-year-old wisdom, declared that everyone deserves a do-over if they're really, really sorry. Liam just wanted to know if this meant he could have a do-over the next time he broke a rule. Nice try, kiddo. As for me, I'm learning. Learning to forgive, learning to let go of the anger I've carried for so long. It's not easy. There are days when I look at Dad and still see the man who walked out on us. But there are also days when I see a lonely, regretful old man trying desperately to make amends before it's too late. I've started going through old photo albums with him. Showing him pictures of Megan's graduation, of my wedding, of the kids' births. All the moments he missed. It's painful for both of us, but it feels necessary. Like we're filling in the gaps of our shared history. Dad's been writing letters. To me, to Megan, to the kids. He says they're for us to read after he's gone. Part of me is curious, part of me is dreading it. But I understand his need to leave something behind, to try and explain himself one last time. We've had some fun moments too, believe it or not. Dad's been teaching Emma how to play chess. He taught me when I was her age, and watching them hunched over the board together. It stirs something in me. A bittersweet mix of grief for what we lost and gratitude for this unexpected second chance. Last night, we had a bit of a scare. Dad had a bad reaction to his latest round of chemo and ended up in the ER. Sitting there in the hospital waiting room, I was hit with a flood of emotions. Fear, obviously. But also a surprising amount of love. The realization that, despite everything, I wasn't ready to lose him. Not again. He's back home now, a bit weaker but stable. The doctors are adjusting his treatment plan. It's a stark reminder of how little time we might have left. Megan arrives tomorrow. Dad's nervous as hell. So am I, if I'm honest. But I'm also hopeful. Hopeful that Megan can find some peace, like I'm starting to. Hopeful that we can create some final, positive memories as a complete family. I know this isn't a fairy tale ending. Dad's still dying. The years he missed are still lost. The pain he caused doesn't magically disappear. But I'm starting to realize that maybe it's not about erasing the past. Maybe it's about choosing how we want to shape our future, limited as it might be. So that's where we are. Navigating this strange, emotional terrain as a family. It's messy and complicated and sometimes painful. But it's also filled with unexpected moments of joy and healing. Thank you all again for your support and advice throughout this journey. Your words have helped more than you know. I'll update again after Megan's visit, if you're interested. For now, I'm going to go sit with my dad and watch the game. Who knows how many more chances we'll have to do that. Edit 4. I know it's been a while since my last update. Life has been intense, to say the least. But I wanted to give you all a final update, to close this chapter of our lives. Dad passed away last week. The last 2 months were a roller coaster. Megan's visit went better than any of us could have hoped. There were tears, heated words, long silences. But also laughter, shared memories, and, ultimately, forgiveness. Megan even extended her stay, taking time off work to be with us. Dad's health declined rapidly after that. The doctors tried everything, but in the end, all we could do was make him comfortable. We moved a hospital bed into the living room so he could be part of family life until the end. Those final weeks were. I don't even know how to describe them. Heartbreaking, beautiful, exhausting, precious. We had movie nights where Dad would fall asleep halfway through, his hand clutching Emma's. Liam would crawl into the bed every morning to show Grandpa his latest Lego creation. Megan read to him from his favorite books. We talked. A lot. About the past, about regrets, about forgiveness. Dad apologized more times than I can count. But in those last days, it wasn't about apologies anymore. It was about connection, about making every moment count. The night before he died, Dad had a moment of clarity. He asked to speak to each of us alone. I don't know what he said to the others, but when it was my turn, he looked me in the eye and said, "Jack, I know I've said this before, but I need you to hear it one last time. I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved so much better. But I want you to know. I am so proud of the man you've become. Not because of me, but in spite of me. Thank you for giving me this chance to know you, and your beautiful family." I'd like to say I said something profound in return, but the truth is, I just held his hand and cried. He slipped away peacefully the next morning, with all of us around him. The funeral was small, just family and a few old friends who'd reconnected in the last months. We buried him next to Mom. It felt right, somehow. Now, we're left to navigate this new normal. The house feels emptier without the hospital bed in the living room, without the constant hum of medical equipment. The kids are processing in their own ways. Emma's been drawing picture after picture of Grandpa in heaven, while Liam's been uncharacteristically clingy. Megan stayed in town to help sort out Dad's affairs. We've been going through his things together, laughing and crying over old photos and mementos. It's been healing, in its way. Last night, we finally felt ready to read the letters Dad left for us. I won't share the contents, they're too personal, but I will say this, they were filled with love, regret, and hope. Hope that we would remember him not just for his mistakes, but for the man he tried to be at the end. As for me, I'm still processing. There's a grief here that I wasn't expecting. Not just for the father I lost, but for the father I could have had all along. But there's also a sense of peace. Of closure. I don't regret our decision to let him back into our lives. These past few months were challenging, yes, but they were also a gift. A chance to heal old wounds, to create new memories, to say goodbye. I've learned a lot through this experience. About forgiveness, about the complexity of human emotions, about the capacity for change. I've learned that it's possible to hold anger and love in your heart at the same time. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it can mean moving forward. To those who are in similar situations, wondering whether to open that door to reconciliation, I can't tell you what to do. Every situation is unique. But I can say this, for us, it was worth it. It was hard and messy and complicated, but it was worth it. Thank you all, once again, for your support throughout this journey. Your words of encouragement, your shared experiences, your advice, it all helped more than you know. This will be my last update. It's time for us to move forward as a family, carrying the lessons and memories of these past months with us. Dad wasn't a perfect man, far from it. But in the end, he taught us about redemption, about the power of a sincere apology, about making the most of the time we have. And really, isn't that the best legacy a father can leave?